Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you for Sunday Night Live here with Tina Schumann. I am going to start out with a poem from Ruth Stone, and it's from her collection In the Next Galaxy. It's titled Tongues. To mortify the spirit, I once attended some classes of beginning French, etc. And have I climbed toward heaven or descended? It does not matter. I am not one whom God can hope to save by dying twice. I am lost among the words of sacrament. What can I say but that I love the wind, and I am shaken when it shakes and scatters the stuttering leaves on the insensible pavement. That's Ruth Stone. Another person in here. But tonight we have Tina Schumann, and I'll read Tina's bio and get going here. Tina Schumann is a Pushcart nominated poet and the author of three poetry collections: Praising the Paradox, Red Hen Press 2019, which was a finalist in the National Poetry Series, Four-Way Books Intro Prize, and the Julie Suk Award. Requiem, A Patrimony of Fugues, Diode Edition 2017, which won the Diode Editions Chapbook competition, and As If, Parlor City Press 2010, which was awarded the Stephen Dunn Poetry Prize. She is editor of the IPPY-award winning anthology Two Countries, U.S. Daughters and Sons of Immigrant Parents, Red Hen 2017. Schumann's work received the 2009 American Poetry Prize from the American Poetry Journal, finalist status in the Terrain.org annual poetry contest, as well as honorable mentions in the Atlantic and Crab Creek Review. She is a poetry editor with Wandering Aengus Press and a graduate of the Rainier Writing Workshop. Her poems have appeared widely in publications and anthologies since 1999, including the American Journal of Poetry, Ascent, Cimarron Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, the Midwest Quarterly, Nimrod, Parabola, Palabra, Poetry Daily, Pomeleon, I can't say that one for the life of me, Rattle, Verse Daily, and read on NPR's The Writer Almanac. You can find a lot about her work online, and sorry for butchering some of the publications, but please welcome.
Juniper, no worries.
Please welcome Tina. Let me add a couple from the waiting room here. As we move through, if you have questions, please post them in the comments, and I will try to roll those into the conversation. But we start out with a particular question each time, Tina, and that is, what is an influential book from your youth?
Well, I think I said this to you earlier, but it's going to be very predictable, and that's Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. My dad was a huge Whitman fan, and so that tome was on our shelves all of my childhood, and I dipped in and out of that. And his audacity and his plain language and his long lines just had me wrapped up, and still has me wrapped up. It's something I go back to all the time. So yeah, that was my early. We had, also Emily Dickinson and other people on the shelf, but he was a big influence. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, what did you bring to start us out?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit predictable again. And Juniper, if you guys can see this, but in 2011, Juniper did a broadside of the titular poem from my collection, Praising the Paradox, and from Red Hen Press, 2019. And why don't we just start with Praising the Paradox? Except for the raging cherry blossom across the street, the neighborhood is quiet. Only the orange cat and I survey the scene. Walking this way along the landscape's edge, my own mythology spills out before me in the slow staccato of a day. Whatever I am taken, I am soon to name: sage, gate, grass, pathway to the open lawn. From the pea vines to the dandelions, I am making it up as I go along. Each step a worn declaration. Be here, love this. Under the hosta's broad leaves, there are always disappointing secrets. A snail's abandoned shell, a start of ivy from the neighbor's yard, small tufts of chickweed in the shaded green. Though easy to pull, this weed spreads fast, its soft roots breaking like bundles of loose thread. Its union with the soil tenuous at best, hard won. Here I am again, praising the paradox. What was I thinking? Nature owes me nothing. I come here for the facts, and facts are what I get. From the curled edge of every blown leaf to the brittle stance of every downward facing stalk.
Wonderful. A lot of people clapping in the gallery here. Yes. With reading, rereading the collection, of course, I read it a few times before it was packed away, but rereading the collection, and I listened to a lot of Buddhist podcasts, meditative podcasts, and also Kristen Tippett. And I was thinking a lot about how your poetry is meditative and creates a space for meditation on particulars and details. But I'm wondering if you have a meditative practice yourself.
I dip in and out of it. I try really hard to get back to it and know that I need it. When my dad was in the throes of dementia, I actually started going to meditation at the Buddhist temple we have here in Seattle, just a few blocks away. I felt as though I really needed it right then because I was getting brain freezes and brain lockdown and just a lot of repetitive thoughts. So yeah, I dip in and out of it now and certainly reach out to it. It's what I reach out to first when the stress gets to be too much. But I think I'm a very internal person. And so I create without intention. I think I tend to be meditative anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
Which of course can turn into festering, which is not good either. Overthinking things. Yeah.
Well, that feeds into one of the questions that I thought about. And you said in one of the interviews online, it mentions that you write to talk to yourself. And I'm wondering if you talk back to yourself, and how does this help or hinder getting your words to the page?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the main reason I write poetry is to work out on the page what's going on up here. And one of my early mentors, Sharon Bryan, had said that to me too. She said, I can see in your poems that you're trying to work out the internal stuff. And I'm drawn to poets like that too, like Charles Wright and John Covey. They're thinking on the page. So yeah, and that's still why I do it. I need to appear vital to myself. I need to appear that I'm alive and I'm not just living every day in some kind of a trance. So that helps too.
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful with the collection. It tells of seasons and relationships and desires of various kinds. And it demands of the reader, there's a cleverness to some of the poems that demands of the reader an attention. You can't get by without, being engaged wholly, I would say, in a lovely way. But I tried to come up with a way of that did it honor. I think I did okay with Noah's last week, but I ended up going back to Dorian's and Naomi's of what they said about your book. I'll just read Naomi's, and this is about praising the paradox. Is a rich guidebook for a life, a grand champion. These deeply satisfying poems with their lush images and fluid sound movements unfold in elegance, settling the spirit. And I really, that part really resonates with me about the meditative part. In every stanza, Schumann's honest voice feels compelling and humble. And this is a quote from the poem. What radiant resignation to be so much less than I could have ever hoped for, end quote. Offering largeness of vision, grace, and enormous reading pleasure. Quote, I simply left blank spaces along the way, an ellipse here, a dash there, end quote. Nothing forced, nothing labored. What a treat.
It's so nice of her. Yeah. It's
Well,
great to hear people's feedback on your own work because you're a tree in your own forest. It's very
yes.
hard to see those things. And so to get that kind of feedback is just a real treat, a real prize to get that. Yeah.
Yes, and for the individuals that did that for you, it says a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
for the work itself. And there
Okay.
wasn't anything I could say that could be better than that. That's why I reverted to them.
Thank goodness they're poets, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. What's next? What do you have next
I
to read?
have, well, since we are at Sunday here, I have a trend in Praising the Paradox where I'm writing poems about days of weeks. Each section ends on a day of the week. There's Wednesday, Friday, and there's Sunday. And then in Talking Back to Myself again, I wrote a poem called Another Sunday. Another Sunday and the eggs are broken, the bacon laid to rest, the belly of the dishwasher satisfied at last. Oh, satiated, coffeeed world, with your mind in reverse and your soft body bound in flannel sheets. How have I come to you again? In the crash of weekday waves breaking on the splintered porch, in the gravity and weightlessness that hefts this ball of earth, its rotation part ritual, part benediction. How I covet the hours we will spend in the endless hedgegrove of banal and quiet tasks, picking up the magazines, shaking out the doorstep's mat. In the yellow state I'm in, I cannot divine the day or fathom a future form. From here, it's nothing more than alliteration of motion, though the calendar pinned to the kitchen wall gapes in silent notation. All attempts at formulation remain null. Tomorrow, I will don my grease coat of complaint, my lab wear of ego. I will stand in the doorway and admire the way the shore so soon becomes the ocean floor.
Wonderful. Clapping in the gallery. We have a question, and it is from Phil Richards. Thank you for the question, Phil. It says, I'm struck by the wonderful line, nature owes me nothing. You are a poet of nature. Do you believe that the poet persona of the poem is alienated from nature? What are the implications of such alienation?
It's funny, I don't think of myself as a poet of nature, but I do tend to turn back to that more often than I realize. I am a gardener and I need to be in the outside world quite a bit to feel stable. But there is an alienation. One, I never feel completely integrated with any part of the world. Maybe that's being an introvert. Maybe that's, you know, who knows? I think I expect a full integration. I expect that I will be fully integrated with nature and it sees me and I see it and other art forms, but you're never fully integrated. You are always, I think, by yourself in many ways, and interpreting the world as yourself with all of your baggage, with all of the mommy and daddy stuff and all of the work stuff and the marriage stuff. And so, you know, I'm a part of the world and not a part of the world. And I think poetry helps to come to grips with that and work that out. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for the generous answer. Can I move into the next poem?
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, I thought I would dip into a few poems that came out of my chapbook from Diode Editions called Requiem, a Patrimony of Fugues. And my dad passed in 2014, but before that he had a good 2 or 3 year struggle with dementia, and I was his long distance caregiver. And with my dad, when I realized when I was starting to take the notes for these poems, he was a great lover of operatic music and classical music, music of all kinds. And when I realized I was going to start using that lingo and that jargon from the musical world, the poems really came together. And so there's a few fugues in the collection. This is called Rehab Fugue number 1. My father is losing his mind. and I am holding up half the sky, maneuvering planets into perpetual night. Hourly, he reassigns his possessions to new homes, the phone in the suitcase, his wallet to the sock drawer, the TV remote asleep amongst the towels. Months earlier, after his storm of backfires, I stood sentry. The past and present rode out in tandem. He became an amalgamation of selves, refuting every synaptic misfire. Deep in the bog of memory, he could not tell the physician how many children he had. He mistook eggs for coffee, water for wine. From his inclined bed, he recited a lame rendition of Dem Bones, his elbow connected to the telephone, fingers to the wires in the wall. In dreams, I turned his stubbled face right then left, on a constant quest for the angry son, fiery suitor, the father that never was. 82 years and he still wants more. Even the struggle will do. Another round in the ring, the daily rope-a-dope of life barely keeping him akimbo. Whatever. Release me from numb creation. I am done with madness and its gray approaches. The nurses think he's charming, and we all want to live forever.
Wonderful poem. I was going to see if you have one or two more Requiem poems, and then I have some questions for you about Requiem, if that sounds okay.
Sure. I thought I'd go ahead and read the opening sequence, which is called Overture, and it's in 3 sections. So there's Overture, Anticipation, Intermezzo, and then Overture, Resignation. Overture, Anticipation. When my father dies, it will happen as it always happens. A midnight drive across the desert, tumbleweeds over headlights, someone's small house adrift in the distance, his own orphaned image receding into the horizon. It will be as easy as reclining my head against velvet cushions, though sharp as the panic of falling in a dream, and memory, that renegade apostle, that curbside huckster, selling shadows and regret, will take his usual position before the footlights, his back to me as always, the black tails of his coat draping coolly down his back, parting with each fluid gesture. With his baton held high, he will cue the orchestra and begin to slowly tap out a 2/4 tempo. Intermezzo. When it happens, it will happen as it always does, inevitably like a body in retrograde. Poker face held firm, a disappearance in the night, a discordant departure. Little elsewheres everywhere. Together we will be a confusion of white space, blank notes, thin and faltering in our dissonance, a final dissension, almost going, almost gone. Overture, Resignation. When my father dies, it will happen as it always does. High wind through pipes, low fog rolling off the lake, a dream of drowning. Any sudden scenario that startles, then subsides. I will be back in the ache of it, negotiating with ghosts, half orphan, half meteor. Like the end of a performance, it will have nothing and everything to do with me. It will culminate in reverberations, then ambient noise, the overture finally over. There will be polite rumblings from the audience, a scuff of heels on concrete, the whoosh and slam of a taxi arriving and departing. I will straighten my scarf like a flag of resignation and walk home in frozen air.
Wonderful. Yes.
Thank you. You want to ask a question, or should I read another one?
The screen kind of froze, so I wasn't sure what was happening.
Okay.
So, I would like to ask the question now, and it's fine to read more Requiem poems afterwards. I get to the right one. So trying to frame it. I had a two-part question, so I'll just read part of it. And that is, we have shared many life experiences, and one of them was losing our fathers to Alzheimer's or dementia. It's one I wish neither one of us would have traveled or, had that experience. And you mentioned, I think it was in an interview, that you had your dad's permission, or he would have been pleased with you writing about it.
Yeah, I believe that because he was a great believer in the arts and he was a huge poetry reader. And in his right mind, he would have appreciated these poems, but he was beyond that point at that time. And my dad was from Jersey City, New Jersey. And so when he gave compliments, he said to me once, "You're pretty good. Yeah, you're pretty good at this poetry thing." So that was about as deep as he was going to go into that. But so he was able to read some of Praising the Paradox and the poems that are in there. So I'm glad for that. But yeah, he totally supported me being a writer. So that was great. Yeah.
Well, I know as writers, sometimes we debate about how much personal or what's our story to write, or, you were quoted also as saying that, "Well, I may believe I own the experience that sparked the poems into existence, I do not own the poem, particularly after it's done."
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed that part.
Yes. And while I may believe I own the experience that sparked the poems into existence, I do not own the poem, particularly after it's done.
Right. Yeah, letting go. And if once it's out in the world, it's out in the world, and you can't control people's reactions. And yeah.
So I was thinking of those two ideas together. One, writing about our fathers, and before Sam died, I said, what do you want me to write about? What shouldn't I write about? And he said, write about any effing thing you want.
Right.
So was his, and I will, and I'm gradually writing some of those.
Right.
But reflecting through some of Requiem and the writing, I believe my dad would support me in those stories, but he was beyond asking.
Yeah.
But now we have family members who may not want that telling. I was curious as to whether you had any experience in that.
Yeah, and I'm writing about my mom right now too, and what's coming back is, I flail between guilt and creativity and guilt, and then the stance that this is my story and I have a right to write it anything I want to. Not only is she gone, so it's not going to hurt her. She wasn't someone who was interested in my writing in any way and wouldn't have come across it anyway. I'm not one who thinks you need to ask permission. I think a lot of memoirists do that with their siblings and friends and make sure that it's okay, especially if they have kids. If I had kids, that might be different. I think I would maybe ask them permission, but your life experience is yours. And I tell that to people all the time. You have every right in the world to write what you want to write. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This our organization and our website supports a lot of writers of all ages. So I really wanted that answer on record, whatever.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they can hear that and reflect upon that, because I think it's an important one.
Experience is valid. Yeah, nobody has to validate it for you.
Yes.
And even, and having siblings, when you talk to them, I think we've all experienced this. They experience some situations so differently than you saw it, or viewed your parents in a different way. And again, we're all individuals walking through this same world, and our perceptions are all so different in detail.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for going there with me. And I have another, back up just to make sure I haven't missed anything. We have another question from Phil. Do you read Emerson as well as Whitman?
Oh, I did earlier. It's been years, but yes, I did. In fact, I was just watching on Netflix last night the beginning of a Whitman documentary, and they talked about how much Emerson had influenced him, that the world kind of opened up for him when he went to go hear Emerson speak.
Yeah. It goes on. Sorry, I didn't get it out fast enough. And self-reliance. Emerson speaks of traveling to Europe, waking up and finding my giant is with me wherever I go. Do your poet speakers find themselves overborne with giant of self, memory, feeling, thought?
Gosh, don't we all carry that with us? I can't exactly define what he means by giant, but I call it my other self. There's the other self that's always shadowing you. Yeah,
Let me
I'm
see.
not quite sure how to completely answer that question, but yeah, it's everywhere.
I'm asking him if he wants to clarify his meaning behind giant. And Kate says, the language of Jersey, I know it well. Kindly, Kate Clare.
But, well, you'll hear him in Requiem too. You'll hear that voice. In fact, that's a good lead into the other Requiem poem I was going to end with from that collection. It's called Long Distance Dirge. A dream I discovered a forgotten phone message from my father. His voice is the same as in his final days, vague, sluggish, appeasing, a vestige of Jersey sarcasm around the edges. He is impersonating an editor, rejecting my work again. A bad joke, he admits. He even mentions the title of the manuscript, something about children and death. I listen and think he must be calling me from wherever he is now. Is that possible? Do they have phones there? It does seem correct that he could reach me, regardless of the rules of mortality, the ether of time, and a distance that thin.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Sorry, I have to regroup the dog here. She's taking advantage of the situation while I'm focused on something else. Yeah, sorry about that. So we can, let's see, we can go into a question. There are no questions in the feed right now. If you do have a question, you're welcome to post it in the comment section. And how about, mentioned online, you in one of the interviews, what is the advice by Robert Haas that you abide by? And what does it look like in your writing practice?
Oh, God, I think it was maybe Stan that told me this too, that Robert Haas had said, you should do something every day that advances your writing career. And I think he went on to say, even if it just means you're thinking about it, right? So give yourself credit for all that internal churning you're doing. Maybe you sent something out, maybe you edited one line, but you did something every day to stay connected to that writing, that work. Yeah. And I do feel I do that. My other mentor in the program that Juniper and I were both part of, Kevin Clark, his advice was turn your office into a factory. Just get it out there. And he wasn't saying be indiscriminate where you send your work, think about it and investigate it, but don't let your own internal nerves stop you from just pump it out. You get a rejection, send it out again. You get a rejection, you send it out again. That's going to keep you going.
Yes, great
and
advice.
Yes, Stan, I know it's about the work. It's about the work. I know that.
He can get his rebuttal in the after party here.
Right.
So we have a couple of questions, I think. And the first one is, you spoke of meditation in a Buddhist temple. How does your spiritual practice inform your creativity? That's from Robert.
Wow. I am such a, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm such an atheist. My spiritual practice is you and me. My spiritual practice is artwork. My spiritual practice is going for walks. So I guess I am a spiritual person, yes, but certainly not in any kind of organized or dedicated way. I was raised Catholic, and that gets under your skin. And there were certainly things that I carried with me that were beautiful, but most of it got rejected. So, like I said, I think it's art and artists and nature is my spiritual practice. Yeah, poetry.
Yes.
Poetry is my religion. I tell my brother that, he's a born again Christian all the time, if he doesn't buy it yet. So that's okay.
That's an interesting family conversation over Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a humanist, I guess, if that's a practice. Yeah.
Yes. Wait, Carolyn Wright. Thanks so much for this, Tina. How has the pandemic affected your writing and or influenced what you write about?
Another good intro to the next set of poems I was going to write, because I didn't think I would, but I am writing pandemic poems, and thankfully they're getting accepted. So I think I'll just go ahead and read one of those. I've been writing epistles. I've also been writing self-portraits, but a couple of the pandemic poems just got picked up. So I think I'll just go right into that. This is called
Sounds great.
Isolation Affirmation number 3. I make more of these moments than perhaps I should. Last night in a friend's garden over a dinner of takeout curry and sog, the last warm air of summer cushioning our conversation. We spoke of long ago travel, motorcycle tours over the Dolomites, sailing cruises to Catalina, hitchhiking in Spain. Because we had been sequestered and forced to face ourselves for too long, the mere talk of travel felt rebellious, thrilling in a way it hadn't since our teens. We were rule breakers, throwing our masks into the air behind us and blowing down the open road. While the ice cream man chimed his bells throughout the neighborhood, we looked into each other's faces and reaffirmed the facts of our past, saying, we'd been there, we'd done that.
Wonderful.
This one's called October. October. Lately, it's been like Groundhog Day around here. Same thoughts, same steel whistle of the kettle, same slow pulse of another smoky sunset. Still, people are trying, what with their chip-toothed jack-o'-lanterns crouched on the front porch and gauzy ghouls peeking out the screen door. They are trying to say hello to this misstep of a season contained within this misstep of a year. This close to the end of it all, we reach out for the usual and the comfort of a childhood mask, as if the scare tactics of reality were not enough. We want the kind of fear we can decorate and fold away in a box the next day. Now that we are all bipolar and understatements abound, it's a trick of the mind to keep going, a treat to be delusional together. That's okay. Let's be something less capricious than the garden variety delusional. You buy the waxy candy bars in their little coffins of colorful paper, and I'll screw in the red light bulb over the front door. Someone is bound to ring our bell in their chosen disguise, just begging for something completely different.
Fabulous poem. So do these, are these a small sampling of what you've written in the pandemic? Have you been prolific? Have you had trouble?
I've been prolific in writing. That's been good. I work at a hospital, which is, up on Capitol Hill. So I used to have to drive in. So now that I'm home, you just do get those extra amounts of time. So I'm glad that I've been writing a lot of self-portrait poems, a lot of epistles, and in between those, I think the poems about the pandemic feel like venting, like they almost have to, get thrown up onto the page and then you go on to something else. And yeah.
Wonderful. I think Phil had a follow-up comment about the giant. Yes, by giant, Emerson meant an overbearing sense of self that imposes upon one to the extent that one cannot escape.
Yep.
The self that Emerson was trying to escape could not be escaped, even in Europe and
Right.
abroad.
Everywhere you go, there you are. I agree.
Yes.
Thanks for that further explanation. I appreciate that.
So more poems?
Sure. I was talking about self-portraits. I think I'll go back to that. And this is the first poem in my next collection, which is called No Matter Your Beautiful Beginnings. It's tentatively entitled that. And this is the opening poem, and it's called Self-Portrait as Unreliable Narrator. I am this covert operator, identity agent, as an inside job can be. Habitual vertical pronoun whistling in the dark. Meanwhile, from a couch in California, my brother is choosing oblivion too soon for the rest of us. His long foot in permanent rictus points south, his morphine-slurred speech over the airwaves. His morphine-slurred speech stumbles over the airwaves. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, sleeping octopus change colors when dreaming, though no one knows what they dream. Hundreds of nuns trained in Kung Fu are biking the Himalayas to oppose human trafficking. Still, I remain content with the family baggage and our boneyard heresies. Bumbling through the usual bleak parables, I play both understudy and stagehand. While the city of Buenos Aires has built a public park along their old ramparts, lovers stroll by rusted cannons that point to the sky. I remain one with homemade double-blind tests, placebos at the ready. Can you see the human in my being, its debilitating beauty, fraudulent, carbon-based, crackle and bloom? The last thing my brother ever said, okay, I'm ready.
Wow.
And how about an epistle? This is called Letter of Introduction. Dear reader, this will come as no surprise to you, but since we are all meteors speeding towards one good burnout, I'd like to reiterate that we are also a murder of crows nodding our compliance in a dark downtown alley. The a cappella group in the background telling it like it is. Or perhaps we are a pack of jackals on the run, bloodthirsty and howling at our own hungers. Not exactly in cahoots, but you know, we share a kind of benign ignorance. One must. As you know, it is the key to happiness, the combo to ecstasy, the hammer to a better tomorrow. Anyway, it's not my job to soothe you or get you on the guided tour courtesy of the mother of me. I am not here to bargain the fossil fuel of my knowledge for the wink of your recognition. I offer you no malice. Neither am I a purveyor of sugarcoating. But enough about me. Let's admit it. You own nothing. Not the kitchen drawer full of broken scissors, matches, and rubber bands. Not your brother's army portrait askew on the mantle, or your dad's worn work shirt. He never owned it either. I know, it's tough news. Sit down. I'll give you a moment. Soon you will lift your wings in pursuit of more things you cannot take with you. You will think yourself free, like a black-crusted gull or the Allegheny River. It's okay. I'm here for you. I eagerly await your reply.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That
Thank you.
Robert Kostick pulled the line, the fossil fuel of my knowledge.
Oh.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. I let myself go a little crazy in the letters. I figure it's sort of an, I don't know, a venue for me to just let what comes come. And although they've certainly been edited, I wanted to get a couple of the poems I really admire are Bob Hickok and Dean Young. And they can take surprising turns in their language. And I've been accused of being hyperbolic in my poetry. And I think you rarely see people like Bob Hickok and Dean Young getting accused of that. But I really enjoy the surprising turns in language that they take. So I'm trying my hand at it.
It was fabulous. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. See, I have I want to get at least a plug-in for your anthology. So would you tell us a little bit about the anthology you edited?
Sure. It's also from Hen Press. It came out in 2017. It's called Two Countries, U.S. Daughters and Sons of Immigrant Parents. It has flash memoir, personal essays, and poetry in it from over 70 contributors. There's some names that you'll know: Joseph Legaspi, Naomi Shahid Nye, Lee Young Lee, Richard Blanco, and many, many wonderful writers that are lesser known, but is equally as talented. It came about because my mom is from El Salvador. She came to this country when she was 14. And so I grew up with a mother who had pretty thick Spanish accent, mostly in California, where that was not unusual. but still, I realized in middle age, I came to realize that my experience of having a parent whose first language was not English and growing up in a household where two languages were spoken was not typical. And there were things that happened as a kid that stood out for me. You know, bringing over a friend and I think maybe 6th or 7th grade, and just having a friend over, and my mom said something to us, and the kid looked at me like I was an alien all of a sudden, you know, and said, "Your mom talks funny," and getting that reaction. And what are you was the next question. What, because you know, they thought I was just a regular white kid like everybody else, and then something askew happened and they couldn't quite figure me out. So I wanted to know what that experience was like for other people. And my original intention was to get work from someone like me, an American kid who grew up with a parent that was from another country. And what I ended up getting was, and I'm glad for this, was a lot of people submitting work who they themselves were immigrants. They had come to this country at 2 or 3 years old. And so they saw themselves as more American than their parents. Ocean Vuong, I got some of Ocean Vuong's work early on before his name became known. And so I'm just terribly grateful, and I'm glad it's out there. And yeah.
So, did you find what you were seeking?
Cooperation was what I was seeking, and I did get it. Yeah, that cooperation, that we are legions. This is what the US is made up of. Everybody here came from somewhere else at some point. Some of us are just more recent than others. And yeah, I wanted cooperation that even though you had appeared to be an American to a large percentage of your group, you had an experience that was somewhat different. Yeah. So.
Yes. Well, it's beautiful.
It was, oh gosh, it was 6 years in the making. I don't know that I would ever do another anthology there. It's hard to satisfy that big of a group of people. And I had no idea whether I was going to get a publisher. So even as I was accepting work and taking it in and putting it together, there was still that question of, will this ever see the light of day? And
yes.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, I will be plugging it from the.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I mean, I continue to be plugging it in.
Yeah.
And if I'm back in the classrooms, I'll be using it there too.
And I have quite a few folks who came up to me and said, I'm using this in the classroom, and I was so glad to hear that. Yeah.
And I think it's more important now than ever. So.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So thank you for describing it. Let's see.
In fact, I want to say that part of my inspiration for getting it out was Barack Obama being in the White House, and also Sonia Sotomayor, who's on the Supreme Court. Both of them having been raised and, you know, products of biracial upbringings. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have some time. There's a poem I like asking because I never quite know what the answer will be, and I ask it in real life. I've asked it a few times here. And it's not a hardball question, but it is there a poem that has been elusive, one that you have tried to write many times, but you've yet to get it to the page in satisfactory form?
Is there one? Yeah, there's one in particular that comes to mind that I have been probably working on for 10 years. It's called Learning to Fall, and I think I've come to a place with it that I'm going to abandon it.
Oh my.
Yeah, and you know, early on when you first start writing, you you think you can wrestle a poem into what you want it to be. You've got this idea of what you want it to say. So I've given that up. I'm good with that. My mentor, Sharon Bryan, said to me early on, and I carry this with me. She said, "Stop telling me what you want the poem to be. Let the poem tell you what it is. Just go there with it, right? Write another poem if you need to later on. Keep those fragments, keep those abandoned images, as Linda Beards used to call them.
Yes.
But don't try to wrestle that poem to a chair and beat a confession out of it, as Billy Collins says." So you know, Learning to Fall is going to be what it is, but that's the first one that comes to mind, that you're just not going to be what I want you to be. So Sail on, little poem, sail on. I'm done. Yeah,
So you're killing your little darling.
yeah, yeah, in some way, yeah.
Is it going to make it to a manuscript, do you think?
It might. It might. I get it. One of the things that helps, of course, is your writers group and getting feedback from people you respect and having them say, I like it. It's working for me. But they don't have all the background stuff that you wanted to
Yes.
say. So
Yeah.
once you've heard that a few times and it's reiterating with you, then okay,
Mhm.
I'll just let it go. Yeah.
Carolyn Wright says, "Learning to Fall. This would be such a great title for a book with such a theme."
Ooh. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you,
So
Carolyn.
with about 10 minutes left, I can always throw another question in, but we don't need to. What else do you have to read?
Well, I have a little poem I thought I'd end with, making that reference to being raised Catholic. So this is called For I Have Sinned. It has been 500 days, countless meals, and many mountaintops since my last confession. I have lusted in my heart for the woman who sells me my morning coffee. It's just the way she stands sometimes, with her back to me and her waist turned just so. I'd like to take her cheek into the bed of my palm, tell her what a gift she is. She of the tender smile, she of the warm offerings. I have coveted my neighbor's garden. I love it and I don't love it. The symmetry of it all. The telltale heap of compost that mocks me from the parking strip. Every tuberose preening in the sun. The Gerber daisies bobbing on their brainless stems. And the way she idles at the edge of beds in her drab green Wellingtons. The serious planning of grace written all over her face. Gluttony can't be helped. We've been over this. We've covered my inability to just say no. Like when I packed my suitcases full of balsamico and grappa, what I didn't tell you is that for days before, I had eaten truffles at every meal. I let their heady fungalness permeate. I let each white sliver melt on my tongue like the body of Christ. And there are hours of sloth, like baptisms of guilt. Submerge me, cover me, I say I am a sucker for the easy move, the natural incline, any tripping towards entropy. It's no use. I know what you'll prescribe. I found 9 rosaries in my mother's bedroom after she died. Look at her now. What a setup. This propensity towards failings. Lord, thy name is entrapment. Let's get on with it. For God's sake, bless me. And bless all of you too. Thank you.
What we typically do here is I will give everybody the opportunity to unmute themselves, but I wanted to check in with our editor. Robert, I forgot to ask you beforehand, would you like to make an announcement about the anthology? I can. Now that I'm putting you on the spot, is that a yes?
You're muted still.
Yep, I'm asking him to unmute.
Cool.
Let's see.
Okay. Our upcoming anthology is edited by Adriana Paramo. Her theme is letters from the self to the world. And since you've read epistole poems, I would love it if you would submit some.
That's, I was saying that earlier, talking to Carmel, that I had just been looking at the site and I thought, oh, I should probably send in some epistles. So thank you. I will do that.
I'm going to post that link here.
Right.
I think it's on there.
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Just came through. Thank you very much, Robert.
Yes.
Please submit. Would you like to say anything else about it?
It can be, I'm glad that you're doing the poetry. I've gotten some submissions that are actual letters, and I've gotten some that are more like memoir, and I've gotten some nonfiction, and I've gotten some fiction, which is a tough sell for telling a letter to the world. But it's a pretty broad theme, and I'm very open to anything that I get. And I'm so glad to hear you read those poems, those epistole poems. And I wrote something about what you did early on here. Letting your voice go.
Mm.
The epistles. some people I read who are poets, they're really short story writers. And they kind of compress their story into something really terse and to the point. And they take out all the extraneous baggage, extra whatever. And I heard that in your epistolar poems, that you're taking something large and you're compressing it, even though you say you're letting your voice go.
Yeah.
And I still see a bigger story there. And I like
Right.
that.
Maybe it's letting your imagination go and not
Mhm.
stifling yourself so much. Yeah.
Right.
And there are, prose poems and there's narrative poems, but something about it still has to say poetry, not a short or a flash memoir or something like that.
Right, right.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to unmute everybody.
Hey, Stan.
You can unmute yourselves. So somebody please try.
I'm here.
It works.
Woo!
It works.
Wonderful. Anybody want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, Tina.
Great
I
to,
would
uh,
like
great
I
to
would like
get
to
here.
know, Tina, are you the editor of the anthology that took you years and years to do?
Yes, I am. I wrote the intro and then I curated and accepted all the pieces and put them together. Yeah.
And edited the whole.
Yeah. 6 years. Yeah.
No wonder you're not sure that you would do that again.
Yeah.
Bravo.
I'm glad I did it once, but I'm not sure it's something I would take on again. Yeah.
And this is the 2 countries?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Wonderful.
It's from Red Hen Press, but it's on Amazon and all the other.
Red Hen Press.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to say hello?
Tina, can we get it from you?
You can, if you go
Hello?
to my website.
Tina,
You
could
can-
we get the anthology directly from you?
Yeah, you can. If you go to my website and email me on there, I'd be happy to send you one. Just
Great.
let me know.
I'll send you something in reply.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. We'll talk about it via email.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
sure. I know you've done your share of anthologies too, Carolyn, so you can sympathize.
Yeah. I have committed a few anthologies.
There you
so
go.
yeah.
Right.
What a
This was a great reading.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I'm excited about the new poems and how they're kind of unleashed.
Thanks. I just had my editor look at it this week, and I've decided that it's in the form it's going to be in, and I'm going to give myself a little bit more time before I submit it to Red Hen and see where we go from there. But yeah, it's always nerve-making, because when you let go of something, that means then you've got to write other stuff. There's no excuse anymore, right? You got to let go of that and move on. So
Exciting. We have
thanks, Robert. Appreciate that.
Tina, it was a gorgeous reading, and
Oh,
you've
thanks,
long
Dan.
been one of my favorite poets.
Yeah.
You've only grown in that way.
You
You're
Help
using
make me. Wish I could give you a hug. I'm
I
giving
don't
you a
give
virtual
I'm
hug.
giving you one right now.
All right.
I have to say that the way you described what poetry is to you at the beginning
Mm,
spoke immediately to me, and I think it can be many things, but the way you use thought in a poem
mm.
to ennobles a poem, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it gives it a significance beyond expressing opinion or describing your life, which are other things people do. So it was a gorgeous reading.
Thanks so much, Dan. I don't want to make this the Mutual Admiration Society, but if y'all haven't checked out Stan Rubin's poetry, please do.
Thank
Please
you.
do.
It was an honor to be mentioned by you, actually.
Oh, you know, all the people that have made you. Didn't Mr. Rogers say that? Who loved you into being, right?
Yeah.
You helped love me into being, Stan. You did. You and
Oh.
Judith both. I'm gonna cry, so let's stop.
But
Oh,
Woo!
Yes.
I'll make you laugh about the first encounter I had with Stan Rubin. I had committed myself to an MFA program in Oregon called at Pacific University.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they're a great program. They are. I just wasn't getting the kind of attention that I wanted. I couldn't really get someone to talk to me about it. And this was in their early days. So I had continually been seeing ads in Poets and Writers for the Rainier Writers Workshop. And it was 3 years and they did other genres. And I thought, oh, I don't know. But it was right in Tacoma. And I knew I could drive to Tacoma. And so I just sent a random email out on a Sunday night. And, you know, it of course, went to Stan and said, are you still accepting students for this year? And my phone rang and it was Stan. And we talked for 2 hours. And I'm like, you know, the whole time I'm talking to him, I'm thinking, this is the kind of attention I wanted. This was what I wanted. And he's telling me this program is made for you. It's for adults who are working adults who have been writing poetry, anyway, you know, it's not like you had to talk me into it, but because I got that phone call, that made all the difference in the world. And the program changed my life. So
Wow.
yeah.
you wouldn't believe the people we didn't accept who had massive credentials, but just wanted ours. We were looking for the right people. You were absolutely one. And you know very well that it's not a boast to say that we had so many who were the right people for
Oh,
this
yeah.
particular opportunity. So thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow.
And still a great program. Yeah.
I have another question, just a thought of reflecting on your writings about your father and dementia.
Mm.
How long did it take you to be able to write what you had experienced and felt from the time that they
Yeah.
had diminished in their capacities for
Mhm.
interacting, and then your healing process after their
Right.
death? Where was it that you were able to write
It
about
was
it?
from the very beginning.
From the-
I was taking notes furiously because the situations are fraught with poetic intent. I mean, they're coming at you left and right. Things he's saying, situations that are going on, and it was helping me get through it.
Yeah.
I had to be writing about it. It was all consuming. And
Brilliant.
so
Just
minute-
brilliant.
yeah, when I could take a situation where I would just be sobbing every day otherwise, but I turned it into art, and that helped save me at the same time and get through it. So, and not feeling a guilt. If it had been my mom, there probably would have been a lot of guilt there, but I know my dad was completely supportive of me being an artist and of all artists. So the minute it started, I was taking notes. Yeah. I'm sure that's
Wonderful.
different. I don't know what it was like for you, Juniper, but yeah, I couldn't not write about it.
Yeah.
What a wonderful encouragement, because I think that we do, not we, but I'll say I tend to carry so much with me, and then
Yeah.
I'll go through stacks of paper and I'm going, oh my gosh, I did write about it, but put it away. But so having that separate journal
Yeah.
of carrying our word of what means so much to our lives. And
It's a little self-therapy going on there, I guess. Yeah.
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 And interesting that you say that it may have been different with your mother, but your father was very encouraging for that artistic expression.
Right.
That your mother, on the other hand, was like, carry on with what, all that
Oh
needs.
no, my mom was like, don't you dare write about me. Don't you dare express what you feel about me. So that would have been, yeah.
I will share one quick thing is that I was told that to go see mom, she wasn't very responsive and she wasn't talking very much. And when I got to see her, I said, well, I am here to write your book. And she goes, oh, they've finally sent a writer. Yes, that's me. I'm the
Oh,
writer of your book. Let's go on outside. There's so much noise in here. And it was the most incredible experience. And I still have yet to write her words and her stories too.
What a great way to approach that. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. And that was one of the things I missed. My dad and I talked a lot. We had a lot of great conversations, and
Wow.
that started to really dwindle and dwindle. And
Right.
some of the poems addressed that too, that he became one-word responses. And that was
Right.
hard to take because he was so literate and so verbal. And yeah,
Right. So for me, if I was to say, it's me, your daughter, Kate,
mhm,
don't you remember me? It's me. It would do no good. And
no,
so I had been taught that a long time ago, that
yeah,
how can you turn it around?
right. You have to go to their world. They can't come to yours.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
thank you. Is there somebody else that wants to show
Wow.
or share your face and say hello
Mhm.
before we close out? The reading ended a little bit early. No? Just thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
And if you want to say hello, I'll keep it open.
Hi, I enjoyed the reading so much. I was interested in the last few poems because they seem to move into a kind of surrealism
Yeah, that's the word I
that,
was looking for. Right.
that a lot of the Whitman line ends up in. The Ashbury and the O'Hara line ends up
Yeah.
in that
I,
kind of surreal place. Do you feel an affinity with poets who do that?
yes. And that's what when I was talking about Bob Hickok and Dean Young, and Ashbery's another one, I find him a little bit harder to get into, but I do admire that taking us into a mystery and not necessarily explaining it in an easy way. It's a poem you have to read over and over again. And yes, letting myself go into the surreal a little bit, into the imagination that's not so based in the everyday world.
But
So,
the poems are still tight though. They still have beginnings, ends, and
oh, good. Yeah. See, that's great to hear. I'm the
yeah,
forest in the trees, so I don't know that, but thank you for
you know,
saying that.
the poems are still tight.
Great.
What great
Thanks, Phil.
questions. For everybody who offered questions and comments is lovely. Thanks again, Tina. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's been great.
I'm a bit behind on downloading the readings, but they will be uploaded to YouTube and then they will be uploaded to the website. And they're in with the collection of other readers that have been part of Writing for Peace. And just thank you so much for your willingness to collaborate.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm inspired. Thank you.
A lovely evening.
Yeah, you
Thank-
too. Thanks. Bye, Stan. Talk to you later. Bye,
Thank you,
Carolyn.
Tina. Thank
Bye,
you,
Karen.
Jennifer.
Good
Good
to
to
see
see you,
you.
Stan.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. See you all
Bye-bye.
later. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great to see you all. It was a wonderful reading. Thank you for being another gracious host again, Juniper.
You're welcome, dear. I'm glad you came.
Oh, of course. I got the time right. What's the idea of posting mountain time?
That's where Carmel and Craig live. And that's where the website originates out
Yeah,
of.
it
So
makes
that's why
sense. I often
keep
feel
up
crazy
to
trying to
clarify.
get to Zoom meetings where in the end you can't get in, but you do well. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.